Chapter 21 Genius vs. Genius. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Che, still in his white outfit and black coat with the Uchiha crest, stood tall in the breeze. They faced each other in the training ground after a year, a stark reminder of time's passage. With their teacher absent, Che asked Hong, who was watching from the sidelines, to referee. As everyone looked on with anticipation, Hong signaled the start, face-off. Begin. Che and Kakashi immediately assumed the opposition stance. Kakashi took the initiative, confirming he was the challenger. He pulled a kunai from his ninja pouch, dashed toward Che, and struck. Che tilted his head to avoid the kunai, then launched a swift counterattack, forcing Kakashi back. Classes had just ended, so Che hadn't even brought his ninja bag, leaving him to fight barehanded. Spotting this, Kakashi tossed his kunai at Che. The kunai's slow trajectory seemed deliberate, but Che caught it with ease. Thanking him, Kakashi replied, "I don't want a cheap win. I want a real one." Che chuckled, "Win? I think you're getting ahead of yourself. You have to earn that." Feeling good, Che continued, "You know, fighting's a blast for me, even more than hunting or playing the shamisen. The shamisen brings me peace and mystery. Hunting helps me unwind and relax. But only fighting gives me pure, unadulterated joy. Kakashi, let's have some fun." Kakashi gripped his own kunai, replying, "Couldn't agree more." They closed the gap, engaging in a rapid exchange of kunai strikes, the weapons clashing with a sharp, metallic ring. Their fluid offense and defense stunned the onlookers. "Is this really a fight between us?" The question echoed in many minds. "This is genius, a battle of geniuses." Might Guy sighed, a hint of envy in his voice. Guy envied talent, but he wouldn't let it discourage him. Instead, he channeled that envy into even harder training. "Double practice after school today. I'll catch up to them," Guy vowed silently, his palms already calloused from training. Obito, mesmerized by the whirlwind of the fight, could only admit to himself how strong they both were. Heiei Gecko, Che's first subordinate, sighed, "Losing to either of these guys is nothing to be ashamed of." Asuma Sarutobi, Che's rival, felt a pang of disappointment. "I thought I was closer to their level, but I guess not." Che and Kakashi's current strength had completely surpassed their peers in Konoha. Only Che could match Kakashi, and only Kakashi could match Che. Off to the side, Kurenai, Yuhi and Rin Noera cheered silently for the geniuses they admired. Back in the arena, Kakashi and Che traded blows in rapid succession. With no clear advantage, Kakashi aimed a kunai at Che's waist. Che effortlessly dodged, sidestepped, and swung his own kunai at Kakashi's neck. Kakashi quickly raised his weapon to block the attack. Clang. Realizing the attack targeted a vital point, Kakashi braced himself, putting extra strength into the block, but Che's move was a feint. The brief contact with Che's kunai threw Kakashi's weapon slightly off balance. Che seized the opportunity. He immediately redirected his kunai downwards, catching Kakashi off guard with the sudden change. Clang. Another metallic ring, and Kakashi was forced to retreat. Reacting quickly, Kakashi had used his arm to shield his chest from the blow. If not for the armor on his arm, that strike would have drawn blood. Rin Noera cried out, "Kakashi!" Kakashi glanced at Rin, reassuring her with a wave, before turning back to Che. "Why aren't you using your full power?" Che knew exactly what Kakashi meant. Che hadn't used his magical power at all. In their first fight, Che had used his magic to defeat Kakashi. Kakashi knew that Che was holding back. Che smiled slightly. "Ha ha ha, you noticed. Why hold back? Because this is a fair fight between ninjas." Kakashi didn't understand why Che considered his magic unfair or un-ninja-like, but Che's words implied it wasn't out of disrespect. Accepting that, Kakashi said, "Okay, let's continue." "Okay," Che replied. The battle resumed. Kakashi threw his kunai. This time, it flew fast and true, aimed directly at Che's forehead. Che deflected the kunai with his own, while Kakashi began weaving hand seals. Kakashi understood that even without Che's magic, he'd struggle to gain the upper hand in taijutsu. He considered taijutsu Che's strength. Ninjutsu, however, was another story. Kakashi believed his ninjutsu skills had surpassed Che's during their time at the academy. In their first fight, Kakashi had gained an advantage using various ninjutsu techniques, so, as the battle reached a stalemate, Kakashi turned to ninjutsu, having been promoted to Chunin this year, his ninjutsu skills had improved even further. Wind style, great breakthrough. Kakashi formed the hand seals and unleashed a powerful gust of wind from his mouth. The gale kicked up sand and debris, momentarily blinding most of the spectators. Chase shielded his face with his hands to minimize the impact of the blast, while channeling chakra to his feet to stay grounded. Kakashi pressed his advantage, throwing several shuriken to trap Chase. The shuriken were amplified by the wind, making them a formidable threat. Chase had to dodge and deflect with precision to avoid being hit. Seeing his momentary advantage, Kakashi continued his attack. Just as the effects of the wind-style jutsu subsided and Chase had blocked all the shuriken, Kakashi closed the distance. He wouldn't give Chase a chance to breathe. At that moment, Chase began forming hand seals. Kakashi watched Chase warily, attacking, unaware he was falling into a trap. Chapter 22 Storm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Magical Tree Binding Kill. Kakashi was instantly immobilized, his attack cut short. The crowd gasped, but Kurenai Yuhi understood perfectly. Having studied illusion techniques together, she knew Chase's genjutsu inside and out. Her father, Yuhihi Kurenai, had always said Kurenai had a natural talent for illusions, as good as his own, but even he admitted Chase was superior to both of them. The magical tree binding kill proved it. This illusion, originating in the era of the first Hokage, makes the victim believe their facing would release, similar to the first's. They feel trapped by massive tree branches, convinced they've been hit by the first Hokage's wood style, totally messing with their mind. Such a powerful illusion is naturally hard to master. Kurenai hadn't learned it yet, but Chase was already using it effectively in battle. Kakashi's ninjutsu and taijutsu were top-notch, but his genjutsu was a bit of a weak spot, but that's relative. Most of their peers hadn't even touched genjutsu, while Kakashi knew the basics. Against an all-rounder like Uchiha Chase, though, basic illusions were useless. Chase, confident in his victory, was taken by surprise when Kakashi snapped out of the illusion. Jumping back to create distance, Kakashi spat out blood, saying, "The older guys were right. Never look an Uchiha in the eyes during a fight. I just didn't expect your illusion to be this strong." Realizing it was genjutsu, Kakashi had bitten his tongue, using the pain to break free. Chase, impressed, exclaimed, "I'm falling for you, Kakashi." Kakashi replied seriously, "Sorry, I'm not into guys." He thought to himself, Chase was a total battle freak. Even Kurenai in the audience frowned. She never thought Kakashi might become her competition for Chase's affection. Chase, his smile unwavering, started forming hand signs for the Uchiha clan's signature fire jutsu. Fire style, Fireball Jutsu. Chase unleashed a massive fireball, radiating intense heat and easily 6 feet across. Even Obito, another Uchiha, was embarrassed. His own fireballs were tiny flames. The difference proved Chase's skill and talent. Kakashi didn't dare hold back against that fireball jutsu. He quickly made hand signs, crouched, and slammed his hands on the ground. Earth style, Earth Flow Wall. A wall of earth, the same size as the fireball, rose to block the attack. Notably, the wall was decorated with a dog's head, showcasing Kakashi's excellent chakra control. The fireball slammed into the wall, and the remaining flames and scorching dust swept backward, filling half the training ground and forcing the spectators behind Kakashi to scramble back. Kakashi vanished in the cloud. Several shurikens flew out of the dust, attacking Chase from all sides. Chase easily deflected them. Then hands erupted from the ground beneath Chase, grabbing his ankles. Chase, as if expecting it, leaped into the air, avoiding the earth-style headhunter jutsu. Kakashi missed, putting himself at a disadvantage, but he had no choice. At such close range, missing another move would be fatal. Staying close was his only chance. Kakashi didn't even have time to grab his ninja tools. He had to resort to hand-to-hand combat, because Chase had landed right in front of him. Chase attacked with a kunai, but Kakashi grabbed his wrist, forcing it away. Chase lashed out with his other hand. As Kakashi moved to block, a blue, spiraling chakra ball materialized in Chase's palm. Rasengan. Kakashi, never having seen it before, was shocked. No hand signs. How is that possible? Both froze mid-motion. Kakashi held one of Chase's hands, while Chase held a Rasengan inches from Kakashi. Despite Kakashi's block, his arm guards and flesh wouldn't withstand the blow. If Che didn't stop, Kakashi's arm would be useless. "I forfeit," Kakashi said. Che responded, "Not necessarily. You could take the hit. You'd lose an arm, but you'd still be in the fight." Kakashi chuckled humorlessly, "It's just a match. No need to get so extreme, right?" Che said seriously, "Every fight deserves to be taken seriously." Kakashi, familiar with Che's battle mania, shook his head and asked curiously, "What was that move you used?" Che dispelled the Rasengan, saying, "It's called the Rasengan. Namikaze Minato Jonin taught it to me. If you want to learn it, you'd have to get his permission first." Kakashi's eyes lit up, clearly intrigued by the move that had defeated him. "Alright, if I ever teach you a jutsu you like, I'll expect you to teach me one in return." The two agreed to trade ninjutsu. The battle between Konoha's two genius ninjas had come to an end. Che and Kurenai went home for dinner together, while Kakashi headed home alone. The result of the fight caused quite a stir in the village. Many believed the two young geniuses of Konoha could now be definitively ranked. Uchiha Che was Konoha's #1 genius, and Hatake Kakashi was now #2. Che was still in school, while Kakashi was already a Chunin, but Chunin was just a rank, not a measure of strength. Kakashi Hatake had lost to Che twice, so in the villagers' minds, his talent was inferior. Lin comforted Kakashi, who thanked her, but he wasn't that upset. He simply resolved to train more after missions. Back home, Kakashi's father, Konoha's White Fang, Hatake Tsukumo, greeted his son with a smile. "Lost?" Tsukumo obviously knew his son had been fighting Uchiha Che. Ignoring the rumors in the village, Tsukumo had already reached his own conclusion. Seeing Kakashi nod, Tsukumo continued, "Kakashi, you need to understand that while you're incredibly talented, there will always be someone more so. Uchiha Che is one of them. I heard he learned the jutsu Minato Jonin spent 3 years developing in just a week. To become strong, both talent and hard work are essential. If you neglect your training, you might not even be able to beat that watermelon-headed kid, Mimicry, in your class." Kakashi felt his father was underestimating him. He could accept losing to Uchiha Che, but he couldn't accept not being able to defeat Mimicry, who only knew taijutsu. Kakashi secretly vowed, "I'll train hard and become a Jonin as soon as possible. I want my father to see my strength." Hatake Tsukumo was a hero in Kakashi's eyes, so he wanted his father's approval. Kakashi started special training, hoping to impress his father while also completing his village duties. This continued for a year, until another storm hit the village. Chapter 23 White Fang commits suicide. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Konoha, Year 44. Just another day, then a rumor started going around the village. Hatake Tsukumo, the Konoha White Fang, a hero on par with the Sannin, the guy who struck fear into the enemy, had actually abandoned the mission to save his teammates, resulting in huge losses for the village. This news, nobody knew where it came from, just blew up, causing a real storm. People started bad-mouthing Tsukumo, saying he wasn't worthy to be called a hero of Konoha if he couldn't even complete a mission. The talk even spread to the school. Che and Kurenai both heard about it. Kurenai asked, "Isn't the White Fang a real hero?" Che answered, "Of course, he is. Can't heroes make mistakes?" Kurenai's eyes widened. "Oh yeah, even heroes mess up sometimes." Che added, "And you have to look at all the facts. These people mouthing off probably don't know the truth, they're just bad-mouthing a hero without knowing anything. The White Fang's contribution to Konoha is probably 10,000 times more than anything they've ever done." Kurenai agreed wholeheartedly. They both figured it was just another village uproar that would blow over soon enough, but nobody expected the storm to get even worse, leading to a tragedy. The legendary ninja, Tsukumo Hatake, the Konoha White Fang whose name struck fear into the enemy, committed seppuku at home. Che never saw that coming. The White Fang was so strong, but kind of naive. Why'd he let those nobodies get to him so much that he'd kill himself? And are the higher-ups in Konoha all idiots? They just let the villagers trash one of their heroes. Or is there something else going on here? Che was shocked and figured there was more to the story. He decided to find Kakashi, Tsukumo's son, and get the real story. That evening, Che told Kurenai he wouldn't be home for dinner and headed to Kakashi's place. When Hatake Tsukumo was alive, Kakashi had invited Che over for a meal. So Che knew where he lived. During that meal, Tsukumo had asked Che to look after his good-for-nothing son. Now Tsukumo was gone, and Che was on his way to see Kakashi, trying to honor his request. Kakashi's house was similar to Che's, secluded and large. It was getting dark when Che got there. He could see with his 6 eyes that Kakashi wasn't home. Luckily, he didn't have to wait long before Kakashi showed up carrying 3 fish. Kakashi held up the fish and said, "What's up? You want to stay for dinner? I just caught these." Che replied, "Sure." They went inside. Kakashi started cleaning the fish to cook them. Che glanced out the window, noticing something. Kakashi said, "You're here to comfort me, right?" Che admitted, "Just wanted to see how you're doing." Kakashi, touched by his friend's concern, choked up. "I'm really not used to being alone." Tears welled up in his eyes, and the knife in his hand trembled slightly as he cut the fish, but he fought back the sadness. "I've been living like this for 3 years, Che said quietly. Kakashi was surprised. He didn't know much about the family situation of the guy who had beaten him twice. Che's parents had died too, a couple of years ago. Che continued, "My mom died right after I was born, and my dad passed away when I was 5. Before he died, he entrusted me to the Uchiha family. That's how I got where I am today. It was tough living alone at first. Simple things like cleaning, washing, and cooking made it hard to focus on studying and training. But those things are easy to get used to. The hardest part is dealing with the loneliness. It sucks living alone. I thought I was stuck with that for the rest of my life, but then Kurenai's dad started inviting me over for dinner, so we could keep each other company. I didn't think much of it at first, but as time went on, I realized it was helping with the loneliness. I'm really grateful to Kurenai and her dad." Che's maturity was way beyond his years. What he said resonated with Kakashi. Kakashi sighed with slight envy, "You're lucky to have Kurenai." Che smiled. "Same goes for you, doesn't it? I've got Kurenai, you've got Rin." Kakashi shook his head slightly, changing the subject. He gutted the fish, washed them, and then turned to Che. "If you were my dad, and you were in that situation, would you have rescued your teammates or finished the mission? Was my dad wrong?" Che looked at Kakashi and realized the young man wasn't as tough as he seemed. His father's death had shaken him badly. Che didn't lie to make Kakashi feel better. He gave him his honest opinion. "I think your dad was wrong, but he was wrong to commit suicide because of the villagers' gossip, not for rescuing his teammates. Rescuing his teammates might not have been the best choice, but it was his choice. So there's no right or wrong about it. If I had to choose between my teammates and the mission, I'd consider the situation. If the teammate was a stranger, I'd finish the mission first and then try to help afterward. But if it was someone I cared about, like Kurenai, I'd ditch the mission and rescue them right away." It was a quiet night, and Che's words carried clearly in Kakashi's home, floating out through the open window. Kakashi thought about what Che had said. Then a noise outside the window interrupted his thoughts, drawing his attention. "Come on in. I'm making extra. Let's all eat together." Obito sheepishly stood up from the grass, scratching his head. "You caught me." "Sorry," a soft female voice came from behind Obito. Obito turned around, startled, and let out a weird yell. Behind Obito was nowhere Rin. "I didn't mean to hide. I just saw Obito and Rin hiding, so I hid too." Another figure emerged from the grass, right next to Noera Rin. It was Yuhihi Kurenai. Kurenai's face was red. She'd obviously heard what Che had said earlier. Che wasn't surprised at all. He had noticed them when they first arrived near the window, but he hadn't said anything, and so, that night, Kakashi suddenly had 4 guests for dinner. Chapter 24 Companions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. These 4 are all Kakashi's classmates. The relationships are kind of complicated, with Kakashi at the center. Obito and Lin are close to Kakashi, creating a bit of a love triangle. Even though Obito gets annoyed with Kakashi, he secretly cares about him. following him all the way home from fishing. Obito is head over heels for Lin and sticks to her like glue. Lin's crush on Kakashi is based on her childhood admiration for his genius, sort of like how Kurenai felt about Che at first. That feeling's been there for a while, and even Che being a bigger genius won't change it. Lin also has a soft spot for Obito, a gentle fondness like you'd have for the boy next door. Che and Kurenai are also connected to Kakashi through Che. Che and Kakashi are both considered geniuses and are close friends who respect each other. Kurenai has a little crush on Che. They've been childhood friends for 3 years, which also links Kurenai to Kakashi. Kakashi looked at the four of them, rolled his eyes, and thought, we were so broke we had to fish for dinner, and now look at this, 4 people helping out. But even with the grumbling, Kakashi felt a warmth inside. At least the place isn't so lonely anymore. The corners of Kakashi's mouth twitched upward under his mask as he carefully prepared the fish. He cooked some rice, turned on the stove, and started frying the fish. The bottom of the pan heated up quickly, and soon the oil was steaming. Kakashi tossed the marinated fish in, expertly handling the pan with one hand and using chopsticks with the other. The oil sizzled as Che and the others sat around the table on the tatami, waiting. It wasn't that they didn't offer to help, but Kakashi insisted they try his cooking, so they were stuck watching Kakashi work his magic in the kitchen. He definitely didn't need any help. Che and Kurenai weren't super close to Obito and Lin because Kakashi was the link. It was a little awkward, sitting there in silence. Lin broke the ice, asking Kakashi, Kakashi, do you live alone? Not the smoothest question, considering it hit a sore spot. She didn't mean to, of course, she just didn't know Kakashi's situation that well. Despite admiring him, she didn't understand him as well as Obito did. Obito had been secretly following Kakashi all day and knew he lived completely alone. He quickly changed the subject. Hey, that fishing trip was awesome. Lin realized her mistake. Even if she didn't know his situation, she'd overheard enough outside the window. After Obito spoke, he glanced at Lin. She caught on and added, yeah, totally awesome. Actually, Lin hadn't seen much of the fishing because she was worried about Minato being too close. Obito would notice him, who was also peeking. Really? Kakashi said quietly. The topic died down until Che jumped in. Kakashi, how different is being a ninja from Ninja Academy? Che asked. Everyone was curious, since everyone except Kakashi was still at the academy. Obito and Lin looked at Kakashi eagerly, excited to hear about ninja life, but Kurenai didn't seem that interested. If you become a ninja, you can't sit next to Che every day, unless you're in the same squad. Kurenai thought. Kakashi's answer burst Obito and Lin's bubble. It's boring. All I do is catch cats and dogs. Obito was bummed. He'd pictured himself doing awesome, world-changing stuff as a ninja. But after I became a Chunin, the missions got tougher, and I ran into some dangerous situations. Hearing the word danger, Lin started to worry. Is it dangerous being a ninja? You have to be careful out there. Kakashi felt a warmth inside hearing her concern. It's okay, usually enemies back off when they see we're from Konoha. Unless they're from another of the 5 great nations, even then, the captain and teammates on the mission will do everything to get everyone to safety. So there are barely any real fights. I've only actually fought a handful of times. Kakashi's ninja experience far outweighed everyone else's there. He was the only one who'd officially become a ninja and had any real-world experience. The conversation became Kakashi's spotlight. This was Kakashi's house, and everyone was there because of him, so he was the natural focus of attention. Che really wanted to hear about Kakashi's experiences. After all, Che was only 2 years away from graduating, so they chatted while waiting for Kakashi to finish dinner. The best ingredients need the simplest preparation. After a busy day, Chef Kakashi Hatake finally brought out the 3 fishes, and the rice was ready too. Kakashi set the fish on the table, and the delicious aroma filled the air. Lin looked at the food. This is fried river fish, Kakashi style. Kakashi answered, a little amused. The fish was fried golden brown, topped with fragrant ginger and garlic seasoning. Kakashi dished out the rice. Everyone closed their eyes, clasped their hands, and said, let's eat. Then they dug in. Lin took a bite of the white, flaky fish and said, Kakashi, this is amazing. It tastes just as good as the restaurant. Obito verified Lin's statement, it really is delicious. You're so awesome. Really? Kakashi asked quietly. Che and Hong exchanged glances after trying it. They both thought it was delicious, too. Are you gonna be a chef when you grow up? Obito asked innocently. Kakashi gave him his trademark deadpan stare. Nah, no way. Obito realized how that sounded. Ha ha ha, yeah, right. Everyone laughed. The next day, Kakashi cleaned the huge house alone as usual, went out, and said I'm going out to the empty space. Kakashi went to Konoha Cemetery, where Konoha's hero, Hatake Tsukumo, was buried with the other ninjas who died in battle. Kakashi placed a white flower in front of the grave. Dad, did you break the rules because of your teammates? I have teammates, too. But I won't be like Dad. I'll find a way to save my teammates without breaking the rules. Even so, you're still my hero, Dad. I'll see you next time. Chapter 25 2 years later. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2 years later, graduation was right around the corner. Some ninja students were excited, others anxious, most were just happy to be done with school. 5 years of Ninja Academy was finally over. No more teachers breathing down their necks, no more fear of getting called out in class, but that was only for the ones who weren't sweating the final exams. For them, this was a nightmare. Obito Uchiha was a prime example. He was still stuck with the reputation of being last in everything. He and Might Guy were basically neck and neck for the bottom spot. Obito was freaking out about the finals. He'd heard the test this year was the clone technique. Normally, that would be a piece of cake, but clones were Obito's Achilles heel. Obito and Might Guy might have been in the same boat, but their situations weren't identical. Might Guy was a taijutsu prodigy, a special case. His ninjutsu scores always tanked. Obito, on the other hand, aced ninjutsu. They both bombed the book smart stuff though. Normally, with one excelling at ninjutsu and the other at taijutsu, Obito seemed to have an edge, and both had a shot at a decent future, but the graduation exam changed everything. Because Might Guy was so awful at ninjutsu, the school cut him some slack and waived that part of the test, but Obito was at least average in ninjutsu. Nothing special, so, no getting out of the exam for him. This sent Obito into panic mode. He was burning the midnight oil, trying to cram, and surprisingly, it worked. He was practically living at the training grounds, rain or shine. His fireball jutsu was almost as good as Che's from 2 years ago. He could actually hit targets with shuriken now, only the clone technique remained a problem. Even after all the extra hours, Obito felt like he was barely scraping by. The real reason Obito was stressing so much was because he'd run into Rin while training in the rain. He'd bragged to her that he was totally going to pass. If he failed, he didn't know what he'd say to her. After stewing for a while, Obito had an idea. Che Uchiha. Yeah. Che's one of us, he's gotta help. So Obito tracked down Che, laid out his problem, and Che didn't hesitate. Back at the training grounds, Obito stood tall as Che circled him, looking him up and down. Finally, he said, "You're stronger than I thought." Che used his Sharingan to size Obito up. He might not have been the best student, but he wasn't weak. Sure, his taijutsu wasn't on Kakashi or Might Guy's level, but he had a solid base. He just needed some polish. As for ninjutsu, he had plenty of chakra, which was key. He didn't know a ton of jutsu, but enough to pass the exam. Genjutsu was just a written test, so no sweat there. All things considered, Obito should be able to pass, but Obito was still lost, so Che decided to give him a symbolic training session. Obito had a good foundation. He just needed to work on technique. Che pointed out that Obito's training had been sloppy in the past, and that was his weak point. So, they'd focus on skill-specific drills. For taijutsu, Che became his sparring partner, peppering Obito with punches and kicks to pass on combat experience. Then, he'd let Obito practice solo, offering pointers along the way. For ninjutsu, he optimized the clone technique process for Obito. He used his Sharingan to monitor Obito's chakra flow, giving him constant feedback. Obito was blown away. Che could literally guide his chakra. After Che's instructions, performing the clone technique became much easier. Truthfully, Obito's clone technique was already passable, his method was just inefficient. Che just showed him a better way. He felt like he hadn't really done much, just offered a quick look, but Obito was super grateful. To show his appreciation, he took Che out for barbecue. Obito's parents were gone, his grandma had passed away, and his family wasn't nearly as well off as Che, who was supported by Fugaku and Jinhong. That barbecue cost Obito nearly half a month's allowance. Even the barbecue wasn't enough. Obito puffed out his chest and insisted he still owed Che one. If Che ever needed anything, Obito would be there in a heartbeat. Che just laughed it off. He couldn't imagine needing anything from Obito, but he had to admit, this Uchiha was something else. Such a cheerful, carefree guy was rare in the clan. The Uchiha were known for being calm like Che, cutting like Uchiha Bronze Fire, silent like Uchiha Iron Fire, and wise like Uchiha Fugaku, but nobody was as happy-go-lucky as Obito. Cheerful just wasn't a Uchiha trait. With Che's help, Obito aced the graduation exam, but during the graduation ceremony, Obito was late because he helped an old lady cross the street. He missed the class assignments and forehead protector ceremony. Luckily, Rin was waiting outside. She personally gave Obito his graduation ceremony. When Obito asked about the class assignments, Rin lowered her head. Obito thought he and Rin weren't in the same class, and his mood dropped. Then, Rin put her hands on her hips and joked, "Too bad, we are in the same class." Obito was ecstatic. When he asked who else was in their class, Rin just gave him a mysterious smile. Meanwhile, Che had graduated and was sitting on the rooftop of a building with his Konoha forehead protector. The two people next to him were familiar faces, Yuhihi Kurenai and Sarutobi Asuma. The three of them made up the Jonin squad. Class 8, facing them was the Jonin in charge of Class 8. He wore a Jonin vest, his black hair was styled like a pineapple, and he had a goatee. 2 scars ran down the right side of his face, making him look a bit rough, but his eyes showed intelligence and cunning. After carefully studying his 3 students, the man said, "All right, let me introduce myself. I'm your teacher, Nara Shikaku." Chapter 26 Becoming a Jonin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In fact, being a Jonin doesn't automatically make you a teacher, it's simply a job that indicates you're capable of leading a team of newly graduated genin on missions. There's no requirement for Jonin to actually teach the genin, but it depends on the specific situation. Most Jonin will develop a connection with their genin during missions and end up teaching them skills, which helps with completing the mission. But it's unusual for a Jonin to treat a genin like a student from the start. That's why Nara Shikaku said right away that the 3 in front of him were his students. The reason is that these 3 are truly special. Uchiha Che is Konoha's most brilliant prodigy and the Uchiha clan's hope for the future, so Nara Shikaku has to take him seriously. Kurenai Yuhi is the only daughter of Kurenai Yuhi, a senior Jonin and genin instructor in Konoha. Shikaku Nara even served under her as a young Jonin for a while. So, naturally, he has to take extra care of his former superior's daughter. Sarutobi Asuma is an even bigger deal. His father is the current Hokage, a ninja master, and the 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, known as the strongest Hokage ever. Nara Shikaku thought to himself, this is going to be a headache. None of these 3 are going to be easy. However, as a Jonin, Nara Shikaku wouldn't reveal his inner thoughts so easily, so, he added, your introductions should include your likes and skills. That way, we can all get along better. Uchiha Che spoke first. My name is Uchiha Che. I like barbecue and sweets. Fighting, hunting, and playing the shamisen are my 3 favorite things. I'm good at a lot of stuff, a little bit of everything, really. Che had already introduced himself like this when he transferred classes. Then Yuhihi Kurenai said, I'm Yuhihi Kurenai. I like seafood, especially octopus. I hate cake because it's too greasy. I'm good at illusions. Finally, it was Asuma's turn. My name is Sarutobi Asuma. What I like? I'd rather not say. I'm good at wind and fire release. Shikaku glanced at Asuma. It was clear Asuma wasn't thrilled, and the dynamic between the 3 of them was obvious. Che and Yuhihi Kurenai were close, while Asuma seemed awkward. but Lugio didn't care about these details. He figured that after some time, they'd get along, or at least be more harmonious. After all, relationships aren't just romantic, and feelings tend to get hidden as people mature. Lugio was mainly using these introductions to analyze the personalities of the three kids. Uchiha Che is mature for his age, but he has an arrogance and intensity inside. He's something else. Yuhihi Kurenai looks like a sweet girl, but she's not as simple as she appears. Sarutobi Asuma, the Hokage's son, has developed a rebellious streak. But he's a good kid at heart. He should straighten up eventually. The Nara clan is known for its high IQ ninjas, and Nara Shikaku is the best of them. His ability to read people is uncanny. Okay, now it's my turn. I'm Nara Shikaku. I like smoking and drinking. I like everything my wife makes, and I wouldn't dare say otherwise. My hobby is strategy, and I'm good at the Nara clan's secret techniques. Che smirked to himself. Even Jonin are afraid of their wives, huh? But family secret techniques are interesting. A technique passed down through generations must be powerful. He was now intrigued by the family secrets Nara Shikaku mentioned. After all, it wasn't like he hadn't copied secret techniques before. He'd copied the Hyuga clan's gentle fist with his 6 eyes. He just didn't use it openly because he was afraid of getting caught, but he integrated it into his own taijutsu, which helped him become stronger. Nara Shikaku had no idea that the young man was already thinking about stealing his secret skills. He said, "As usual, I'll assess you. It'll be a practical combat exercise, but it's getting late. We'll do it tomorrow." They agreed on a time and place for the next day, then went home. The next day, Che went to Hong's house first, then they went to the meeting place together. Asuma arrived alone, a little later than the two of them, but still before the agreed time. Nara Shikaku arrived right on time and said, "You guys are punctual. I appreciate that." It was mid-morning, and the training ground was empty, perfect for combat training. Nara Shikaku got straight to the point and explained the rules of the exercise. Your mission this time is an escort. He pulled a small scarecrow from his pocket. It was roughly made, like he'd spent a few minutes on it. Nara Shikaku explained the mission with a straight face. This is your client, Ichiro Sakamoto. He's a rich businessman from the land of fire. He's traveling to the land of lightning alone for a meeting. Because he has enemies, he hired Konoha to provide an escort, and the three of you will take the job. Che listened intently to the background story Nara Shikaku was creating. At first, Kurenai thought Nara Shikaku was being overly dramatic and found it funny, but Che's seriousness made her take the exercise more seriously. Asuma thought it was just an exercise, and there was no need for such detail. Shikaku handed the scarecrow to Che and continued, Uchiha Che, as the team captain, is responsible for the client's personal protection. You've arrived in the land of lightning, just a few hundred yards from the city where you'll complete the mission. Shikaku pointed to a forest in the middle of the training ground and said, go through that forest, and you'll see a river. Cross the river, and you're there. Keep in mind that the land of lightning has many canyons and mountains. There are mountains on either side of the forest, but the client is afraid of heights, so you can't take him around the forest. Current intelligence suggests there may be enemies in the forest, so be extremely careful. The client is tired and wants to rest for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, you'll start the escort. You'll succeed if you reach the destination. Lugio went into the woods and disappeared, leaving Che and the others waiting. Chapter 27. It doesn't look like acting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 15 minutes later, Che pulled the scarecrow out of his coat pocket and stood. Time's up. Our client's ready. Let's move. Hong jumped up, and Che glanced at Asuma. They locked eyes for a moment before Asuma pushed themselves up. Che nodded, satisfied. Good, let's go. They stepped into the woods. Immediately, Che signaled them to slow down. I sense danger. Formation, protect the client. Client safety was paramount. Che took the lead, with the scarecrow, Ichiro Sakamoto, directly behind him, Kurenai, Yuhi and Asuma flanked Ichiro, forming a protective triangle. Ichiro stayed snug in the formation, moving forward efficiently and safely. Suddenly, a kunai flew from the trees, aimed at the open space in the middle of their formation. Theoretically, that's where the client would be. A direct hit on that spot meant the client was down, and who knew if the kunai was poisoned? It could be fatal. Nobody wanted Shikaku popping out to declare the mission a failure because of some super poisonous kunai. Asuma pulled out two weapons resembling fingerless gloves with blades attached. These were a graduation gift, short swords forged by the third Hokage from chakra metal and a hard alloy. Chakra metal was pricey, so the third Hokage only mixed in a little, but it was enough. These weapons could absorb the user's chakra and reflect its elemental properties, making them deadly in combat. Asuma charged forward, deflecting the kunai with a clang, then darted into the trees towards the launch point. Asuma ranked among the top 3 in their class. He was fast and strong. He leaped into the tree, the chakra-infused blades flashing as he sliced through the foliage. Leaves rained down, but Nara Shikaku wasn't there. Only a simple launching device remained. Surprised, Asuma smashed the device and jumped back down. He's not up there, teacher. Che already knew. Doesn't matter. Stay alert, re-establish the formation. Asuma nodded and resumed their position. The forest was only a little over 200 yards wide, easily crossed even with someone to carry, but they knew Shikaku had booby-trapped it, and with Shikaku himself lurking somewhere, they moved cautiously, almost at a normal walking pace. They advanced step by step, vigilant. Sure enough, they encountered more traps and disarmed them. The small stuff was making Asuma lower their guard. They were halfway through, almost out of the woods, but as Asuma thought that, Shikaku struck. This time, a kunai hurtled towards him. Asuma reacted instantly, ready to bat it away with their chakra blades, but this kunai had a detonating tag, and it was already lit. Asuma saw the tag mid-stride, but couldn't change course. Kunai and ninja were on a collision course. There was no time to react. Asuma braced to punch the kunai away, hoping to deflect it before it exploded. It was risky. The tag could go off on impact, but there was no other choice. Suddenly, another kunai shot past Asuma, striking the incoming kunai. The collision altered its trajectory, sending it careening into a nearby tree. Boom! The tree exploded, showering Asuma with wood and debris. Che had thrown the kunai, saving Asuma's life. He'd spotted the detonating tag with his special sight, thinking, Shikaku's got guts. Risking blowing up the Hokage's kid? But he probably figured I could pull off that last save. Still, that's bold. Nara Shikaku emerged from the shadows. Hand over the client, and you walk. Che replied, never. Protecting the client is a Leaf Ninja's core principle. Shikaku's face twisted into a cruel smile. Then don't blame me for getting rough. Shikaku flung a barrage of shurikens, blanketing Asuma, Che, Kurenai, and the client from all sides. Asuma rolled clear. Che intercepted the shurikens aimed at Hong and the client, saying, Hong, protect yourself and the client. Che pulled 2 shurikens and hurled them at Shikaku. Shikaku dodged, but Che had attached a near-invisible wire to the shurikens, guiding them to pursue Shikaku. Forced to defend, Shikaku deflected them with his kunai. Shuriken Jutsu. You're an Uchiha. Shikaku exclaimed. Che responded, knowing I'm an Uchiha, you still attack. Shikaku laughed. Uchiha brats fetch a good price at the exchange. Che's internal response was, that didn't sound like acting. Suspect needs a thorough background check, Chapter 28 Shadow Mimicry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Che didn't stick with Shikaku. Instead, he grabbed a kunai and shuriken from his pouch and flung them forward. This was the first attack. As Shikaku dodged, Che used thin strings to yank the kunai and shuriken back, sending the shuriken spinning around for a second strike. The shuriken came at Shikaku from behind. The third attack. This was a C-rank ninjutsu passed down through generations in the Uchiha clan. With just basic ninja tools and special threads, he could achieve unexpected results. The technique originally required the Sharingan's insight, but Che's 6 eyes were a decent substitute, letting him master it. A shuriken struck the back of Shikaku's head, and with a poof, he vanished into a log. Basic substitution jutsu. Shikaku had already ducked behind a nearby tree, but Che saw right through it. He tossed all the remaining shuriken from his pouch, blanketing Shikaku's hiding spot, and he wasn't done. Che formed hand seals and spat out balls of flame, engulfing the shuriken. Fire style, Crimson Impatience claws, the fiery flames wrapped around the shuriken, blasting toward Shikaku with incredible force, blinding him and disrupting his movements. This move combined the scorching power of fire style with the cutting edge of shuriken for a double whammy. It was a B-rank Uchiha fire style technique, Jonin level difficulty. Still, for a genius ninja like Che Uchiha, knowing B-rank jutsu fresh out of the academy wasn't too surprising. However, even that wasn't enough to threaten Nara Shikaku, already a Jonin. The overwhelming assault didn't faze Shikaku. Calmly, he formed hand seals, and his shadow detached from his body, becoming a solid entity. Shadow tentacles, the tentacle shot out in front of Shikaku, blocking most of the fiery shuriken. Even better, it passed right through the holes in the shuriken, sending them flying back toward Kurenai and the client. That's a powerful move, Shikaku said, but while the shuriken boost the ninjutsu's power, they also give it a weakness. They make the normally intangible flames solid, which makes them easier to block. Che created an earth wall behind him with an earth-style technique, shielding Kurenai from the shuriken. He listened to Shikaku's words and sighed, yeah, Jonin really do have a better understanding of ninjutsu than I do. Che realized the gap between them. Just then, Asuma, recovered from the earlier attack, rushed forward while Shikaku was distracted, channeling chakra into his trench knives and aiming a strike at Shikaku's chest, but suddenly, Asuma froze, his face contorted in frustration. He couldn't move an inch. The Nara clan's shadow possession technique, Che thought, after learning that his Jonin was from the Nara clan. Che and Kurenai had grilled Yuhi Mako for intel. They'd learned that most Nara clan secret techniques use shadows to control enemies. Che had been on guard, but Asuma's impulsiveness had gotten the better of him. Asuma probably knew about the shadow possession technique, but he was too focused on what he thought was an opening when Shikaku was talking to Che, so he'd gotten too close and been caught. Shikaku grinned and flicked his wrist, and Asuma's wrist moved against his will. Give it up. With my current strength, I could keep you pinned for half an hour. Shikaku threw a few punches in the air, and Asuma, forced to mirror his movements, swung the chakra-enhanced trench knives. Shikaku channeled chakra into his fists, and Asuma could only follow suit. After a few practice swings, Shikaku had gotten the hang of controlling Asuma's body. By then, Che was right in front of Asuma. The shadow possession technique required hand seals, leaving an opening, so Che wasn't as worried. That's why he dared get so close. Shikaku controlled Asuma to launch a furious assault. Che, without any ninja tools, could only dodge. Even though Asuma was being controlled, his strength was actually greater than Che's at the moment, but still, he couldn't touch a hair on Che's head. While evading Asuma's attacks, Che reached out and struck Asuma's body repeatedly. At first, Shikaku didn't care. The pain of someone controlled by shadow possession didn't transfer to him. It was just tough on Asuma, getting beaten by his teammate against his will, but Shikaku quickly realized something was off. His shadow possession was getting harder to maintain. Asuma's movements were becoming less and less precise. Shikaku was confused, but he understood that Che's actions had something to do with it. Che was applying the gentle fist fighting style to hand-to-hand combat. His strikes had targeted the chakra points where Asuma channeled chakra. By disrupting Asuma's chakra flow, Shikaku's control was weakening. After a flurry of blows, Che completely sealed off Asuma's chakra, shutting down the shadow possession technique. Asuma slumped. The constant attacks, the sealed chakra, and the side effects of the shadow possession left him drained. Che caught Asuma, carried him back to Kurenai, and gently laid him on the ground. He asked Kurenai to watch over him. Kurenai nodded seriously, and Che turned back to face Shikaku. Nara Shikaku said, "You're the first person I've ever seen break the shadow possession technique like that. How did you do it?" "Care to share?" Che replied, "Maybe later." Seeing that Che wasn't going to answer, Shikaku didn't push it. They continued the fight. Fire style, fireball jutsu. A massive, scorching fireball erupted, nearly as large as the entire tree canopy. at least 15 feet across. Shikaku was stunned by the size of the fireball and forced to retreat to avoid getting roasted. The treetop and a large swathe of forest behind it went up in flames. Shadow Strangle Technique, Quinoxial Bloom. Nara Shikaku slammed his hand on the ground, instantly sending his shadow spreading in all directions, forming an intricate pattern like a higginbana flower. This pattern was a forbidden zone. If touched, Nara Shikaku would control his body. Che backed away, grumbling, that massive fireball jutsu is impressive, but it's not doing any damage. Another shadow secret technique? It's completely different from normal ninjutsu principles. I'll need some time to analyze it with my 6 eyes. Che's eyes glowed with a crystalline blue light as his 6 eyes went to work. Chapter 29 Evaluation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Nara Shikaku noticed the shift in Che's gaze, thinking, those eyes are something else. Does the Uchiha clan have another eye technique besides the Sharingan? Shikaku's sharp. He recalled the bright flash in Che's eyes when he'd countered his shadow imitation technique. Che's eyes weren't usually that intense. It was a subtle difference, but he caught it. Still, Shikaku figured everyone has their secrets, so he wasn't about to pry. Surrounded by the deep shadows of the woods, Shikaku felt right at home. His shadow stitching technique snaked out, relentless. The shadows moved fast, constantly attacking Che, forcing him to dodge and weave through the trees. You might not know, Shikaku said, but my clan, the Nara, has been raising deer for generations. Deer are as nimble as you are. We developed the shadow binding technique to collect their antlers without hurting them. In a forest like this, I can immobilize an entire herd, making it easy to collect their antlers. You're just another deer to me. Save yourself the struggle. Shikaku tried to unnerve Che, but it didn't work. Instead, Che was all too interested in the deer hunting story. What's the point of hunting if there's no blood? Che asked. If it were me, I'd just torch the whole herd with a fire jutsu. Antlers and a barbecue, 2 birds with 1 stone. He quipped as he dodged. Shikaku smirked. You brat. Shikaku is a friend of the Nara clan, show some respect. Besides, deerskin's valuable. Burning it like that is a waste. The two were actually debating deer hunting mid-battle. Despite the playful banter, both had a high opinion of the other. Che knew this guy was not only stronger but also had a thing or two to teach him about fighting and ninjutsu. Shikaku saw in this kid a blueprint for a ninja prodigy. With his skills in shuriken jutsu, fire style, and taijutsu, he was the total package for an Uchiha. Add his sharp mind, way beyond his years, and Che was already Chunin material, maybe even higher. Sure, he lacked some of the raw power of a Jonin, but in Shikaku's eyes, he was better than most Chunin in the village. If he had to put a label on it, he'd call him a special Jounin. It's a rank between Chunin and Jounin, for ninjas who are stronger than the average Chunin or possess unique talents but aren't quite Jounin level. Che fit the bill perfectly. Shikaku couldn't help but think, he's only 9. The kid's a freak of nature. A few more years of training, and he'd probably be Jounin level. Too bad, he's an Uchiha. Lost in thought, Shikaku's focus wavered. Che noticed the shadows slowing down. He wasn't sure why, but he knew opportunity when he saw it. He kept darting around the woods, his blue eyes scanning the surroundings, as if searching for something. By the time Shikaku snapped back to reality, Che had reached the edge of the forest, and Shikaku instinctively gave chase. Che quickly went through hand signs and slammed his palm on the ground. Earth style, earth flow severance. That when Shikaku caught up, he saw a huge, deep gash diagonally cutting through the open area bordering the woods. Something about it didn't feel right, and a sense of unease washed over him. Che was already gone, heading in another direction. Shikaku didn't have time to think, he had to keep up. What's that kid up to? He wondered. And how did he suddenly get so much faster? Che was actually using his magic power to keep Shikaku at bay. Combined with his chakra, it gave him a speed boost that even a Jounin like Shikaku couldn't match. At least for a short time, Shikaku actually questioned his training, wondering if he was losing his edge against this kid. Soon, Che reached the other side of the woods and did the same thing. now Shikaku had a pretty good idea of what Che was planning, and he didn't like it one bit. Asterisk, is that kid going to? Asterisk, he thought. Che rejoined Kurenai and grabbed her to keep her from moving, then, with another set of hand signs, he slammed his hands on the ground. Earth style, multiple earth wall prison, 0.4 earthen walls rose up, back, left, right, and above. Combined with the original earth wall blocking shuriken, the 5 walls formed a solid, unbreakable cube, asterisk boom. Boom, star. 2 explosions echoed from the distance. Shikaku had just arrived in front of the earth wall fortress. Che, sensing Shikaku's presence outside, yelled through the earth wall, "Enemies outside, listen up. The mountains on both sides have collapsed. You're toast." Che's voice was muffled, but the message was clear. Shikaku finally realized what Che had been up to. During his escape, Che had recovered the explosive tags Shikaku had planted in the forest. Then, he'd created cracks on both sides of the mountains, stuffed the tags inside, and detonated them simultaneously, causing the mountains to collapse. Shikaku was stunned by Che's cleverness. The trap he had set to limit them had become the reason for his death in the canyon. Shikaku threw his hands up in the air. "Ah, I'm dead." Che blasted a hole through the earth wall with a lightning jutsu, and he and Kurenai escorted the client and Asuma through the forest and across the river, completing their mission. Shikaku walked over and applauded. "Congratulations on passing the combat exercise." Kurenai, beaming, gave him a high five. Che returned her smile and glanced at Shikaku, as if waiting for praise. Shikaku rolled his eyes. "This kid's still a kid at heart." "Alright, you all passed, but I'm not rating you all the same," Shikaku said. "Asuma, you're at the bottom. You're strong enough, but you were reckless. You paid the price for your impulsiveness. Learn from it." Asuma, barely able to sit up, didn't want to hear it, but he couldn't argue. He clenched his fists in silence. "Second is Kurenai. You didn't show off, but your dedication to protecting the client and Asuma kept the mission from failing. It shows you can stay calm, value your teammates, and aren't looking for personal glory. Those are valuable qualities." Kurenai was happy to hear the praise, and the corners of her mouth turned up. She pretended to be modest. "I still have a lot to learn." Shikaku waved his hand. "Finally, Che gets the highest rating. In terms of overall strength, he's performing at a special Jonin level, maybe even a bit higher. Most importantly, he's got an incredible mind. He rescued and protected his teammates while formulating the best plan based on what he knew and what was happening. This mission was a success mainly because of Che." Chapter 30, Class 7 and Class 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Che always had this smile on his face, which made Shikaku feel like he was being mocked, like Che was saying, a Jonin getting tricked by a genin. Seriously, but the more Shikaku thought about it, the angrier he got. So, he changed the subject. "Okay, so the mission was a success, but that doesn't mean it was perfect. First off, your formation's shaky. One kunai trap was all it took to break it. If I'd wanted to, I could have offed your client right then and there, game over. Second, you're not focusing your firepower. Asuma and Che were taking turns on the offensive, with Kurenai just playing defense. If the enemy had more numbers or more power, you'd get picked apart, easy. Finally, Che's battle plan was a gamble. First, there's no guarantee those mountains were unstable enough to bring down with explosive tags. And even if the explosion worked, there's no guarantee it would wipe out the enemy. I could have used my shadow possession jutsu to hide in the shadows, for example. Or other ninja with good defense could have survived the cave-in. Shikaku's criticisms might have seemed picky, but they were spot on. Che nodded, agreeing. Seeing that, Shikaku's mood lifted. Alright, you guys earned it. Let's grab some grub. What's everyone in the mood for? Asuma mumbled, I'm easy. Shikaku looked at Che and Kurenai. Kurenai just smiled and pointed at Che. He's probably thinking about barbecue again. Che admitted, guilty as charged. Nara Shikaku pulled out his wallet, checked inside, and said, "Barbecue." "Okay, barbecue it is." Che detected a hint of hesitation in Shikaku's voice. He joked, "What, even Jonin feeling the pinch?" Shikaku awkwardly touched his chin. "Well, my wife controls the purse strings, but I think I can swing some barbecue." Maybe that was just the sad truth of being a grown man. Barbecue Q had been around Konoha for years and was pretty popular. Luckily, they arrived early and snagged a table. Shikaku walked in and the waiter greeted him warmly. "Hello, party of four," Shikaku nodded. The waiter was about to lead them to a table, but Shikaku pointed. "Nah, we'll sit over there." Kurenai looked where Shikaku was pointing and saw a familiar head of blonde hair. Kurenai looked at Che, unsure. "Che, is that?" Che smiled and said, "Yep, that's Minato, the Jonin." "Namikaze Minato?" Asuma perked up when he heard the name. His dad talked about him all the time, always praising him. Shikaku had picked that spot specifically because Minato was there. Shikaku walked over with the others. Minato saw them and gave them a bright smile. "Long time no see, Shikaku." "Oh, are these your students?" Minato greeted Che and the others, surprised to see Che and Kurenai. Shikaku said, "Yep, and these three are handfuls." Minato laughed and invited them to join his group. Che noticed Kakashi, Obito, and Rin with Minato, and thought, so, the teams are already set. Guess you can't fight fate. Even though Kakashi was already a Chunin, he'd been pulled back to form Team 7 with Obito and Lin because of their ages and experience. Kakashi and the others also said hi to Che and Kurenai. Both groups were colleagues and classmates, and since it was their first team outing, the atmosphere was buzzing, but Che didn't care about the atmosphere. He cared about whether they'd ordered barbecue and whether they had sugar. "Did you run drills today too?" Minato asked, curious. Being a Jonin was new to him and he wanted to know how other Jonin did things. Shikaku glanced at Minato, thinking he seemed a bit clueless. "Of course, you ran drills on the first day to get the team used to working together." Still, Shikaku explained their exercise. "Yeah, we simulated an escort mission. I played the bad guy." Minato was immediately interested. "Oh. How'd that work?" "I only know the bell test that I learned from Jiraiya." "Huh, nothing fancy. I used a scarecrow as the client and had them escort it." Che actually pulled off some interesting stuff. Shikaku described the day's drill in detail. Minato was hooked and praised Shikaku's idea and the three's performance. Obito overheard the other team's escort mission and sighed jealously. "Escorting sounds fun. We just had to fight over bells and couldn't even touch Minato-sensei." Minato scratched his cheek, embarrassed, and chuckled. Lin nodded silently. They were too inexperienced to beat Minato at this point. Kakashi wasn't paying attention. He was focused on Che's performance, hearing how Shikaku and Minato praised him. Kakashi felt his competitive spirit flare up again. He thought to himself, "I'm still just a Chunin, but Che's already getting recognized by Shikaku and Minato. Guess I'm falling behind." Clutching his father's White Fang dagger, his eyes had a look that was both stubborn and sad. Asuma saw Kakashi in the back and felt a little relief. Even Kakashi can't measure up to Che. Maybe, in some way, being in the same era as Che was Asuma's tragedy. The culprit, Che, was in the kitchen asking for a sugar packet. When he came back, he noticed that both Asuma and Kakashi were unusually glum, but he didn't know why. The smell of barbecue quickly made Che forget it. Barbecue with sugar was Che's favorite. After the great meal, Shikaku's wallet was suddenly a lot lighter and he headed home looking worried. Asuma also went home alone, and Che went home after dropping Kurenai off. At dusk, Che arrived at his house. A black crow was perched in front of the door, looking at him curiously. Che used his 6 eyes to confirm it was just a normal crow, nothing special, so, Che made a hand seal. The shadow beneath him turned into a black line, blending into the shadow of the crow was instantly trapped. Success. Che's 6 eyes analyzed the shadow technique and found that the chakra wasn't one of the 5 basic types, but a special chakra with pure spiritual power. Anyone else trying to learn this would need years, even if they understood the theory. but Che was different. Mantra was pure spiritual power. After all, that's right, the shadow imitation jutsu Che used wasn't real. Che wasn't proficient with Yin release yet. This was just a magically modified version of shadow imitation using mana. Shadow, spell. Why do I feel so weird combining these two things? Che felt a strange emotion, probably connected to his past life. Whatever, let's give it a name first. Let's call it, Shadow Spell. Che had created his first spell in this world.